Imagine a world where wealth isn't just power, it's a weapon. A world where money doesn't just buy influence, it rewrites the very rules of existence. In this world, the line between reality and fantasy blurs, and the impossible becomes routine. Picture a place where the laws of society, of physics, of what you and I think is possible simply don't apply. Here the night is alive with secrets, and every shadow hides a story of ambition, betrayal, and unimaginable fortune. We're talking about a level of influence so immense it leaves even the likes of Elon Musk speechless. The kind of power that can silence billionaires, topple governments, and make the world's most powerful people look like pawns on a chessboard. This isn't about cash or cars, it's about untouchable power, private armies, and the ability to bend governments to your will. It's about living above the law, where fear is currency and loyalty is bought with blood. These aren't just criminals, they're modern emperors, building kingdoms on fear and oceans of illegal money. Their empires stretch across continents, their reach is limitless, and their enemies vanish without a trace. But before we meet the king, we have to talk about the queen, a woman whose name inspired terror and respect in equal measure. She ran her empire with ruthless efficiency, rewriting the rules of the underworld and changing the game forever. Her name was Griselda Blanco, and her story is just the beginning. In the shadows she cast, a new king would rise, one who would shatter every boundary and leave the world forever changed. Before Miami became the playground of the rich and famous, it was a battleground, and at the center stood Griselda Blanco, known as La Madrina, the Black Widow. Born into poverty in Colombia, she clawed her way up from the slums, her ambition as sharp as her ruthlessness. Arriving in Miami, she didn't just join the drug trade, she redefined it. Griselda painted the city with blood and cocaine, pioneering the use of women as unsuspecting mules and inventing the infamous motorcycle drive-by, a method that left her rivals terrified and law enforcement scrambling. Her name became a whispered warning in Miami's underworld. Violence was her calling card. Her enemies vanished. Her allies lived in constant fear. The tabloids dubbed her the cocaine godmother, but on the streets, she was a legend and a nightmare. At her peak, Griselda pulled in an astonishing $80 million every month. Her mansions overflowed with luxury, gold, jewels, and art, while outside chaos reigned. She lived lavishly but always in the shadows, paranoid, protected, and perpetually on the move. Trust was a luxury she could never afford, but even the most powerful empires crumble. As law enforcement closed in, her world of excess and terror began to unravel. Betrayals mounted and the net tightened. Griselda Blanco's reign ended not with a bang but with the cold clang of prison doors. Yet, her legacy would haunt Miami for decades. She was just the first act in a saga of crime that would shock the world. Before he became a legend, Carlos Leder was just another ambitious hustler on the streets of Colombia. But he was different, restless, brilliant, and utterly fearless. He studied Griselda Blanco's playbook, but he didn't just want to follow in her footsteps. He wanted to rewrite the rules. Leder envisioned something bigger, a superhighway for cocaine, a seamless pipeline that would flood the United States with product and cash. Obsessed with power, he set his sights on Norman's Cay, a sun-drenched speck in the Bahamas. He didn't just buy the island, he transformed it into a fortress, a 24/7 trafficking hub where the law couldn't reach. Night and day, planes loaded with cocaine landed, refueled, and vanished into the sky, bound for Miami, New York, and beyond. Law enforcement was always a step behind, chasing shadows. Norman's Cay became a pirate kingdom, armed guards with machine guns, wild parties that lasted for days, and a constant undercurrent of paranoia. Leder ruled with an iron fist, but he was always looking over his shoulder. At its peak, 4 out of every 5 tons of US-bound cocaine passed through the island. The authorities knew something was happening, but Leder's operation was too slick, too fast. The money was staggering. Leder was so rich, so untouchable, that he once offered to pay off Colombia's entire national debt in exchange for immunity. But power breeds enemies. Leder's ego grew as fast as his empire, and his erratic behavior made him a liability. The cartel, once his family, began to turn on him. Betrayed by his own, Leder was captured and extradited to the United States. The kingpin who once ruled an island was now just another prisoner sentenced to life behind bars. Yet, Leder's logistical genius changed the drug game forever. He proved that with the right plan, even a tiny island could become the beating heart of a global empire. He showed the world that with enough money, you could warp reality itself, bend the rules, buy loyalty, and live like a king. But even island kings can't escape the consequences. The paradise later built became his prison, and his empire crumbled to dust. His story is a warning. Paranoia and power are a deadly mix. In the end, the walls always close in, but the world of organized crime never sleeps. The next criminal empire would be even more shadowy, more elusive. Enter the global ghost, Dawood Ibrahim, a man whose reach would stretch far beyond the Caribbean. The game was about to go international, and the stakes had never been higher. In the underworld, power is measured not by what you show, but by what you conceal. Dawood Ibrahim, the invisible hand behind D Company, is a name whispered in fear from Mumbai's crowded alleys to the boardrooms of distant continents. He doesn't just run a crime syndicate, he orchestrates a global empire, moving pieces no one else can see. Drugs, extortion, contract killing, terrorism. His reach is a web spun across continents, each strand connecting a different vice, a different market, a different victim. Every deal, every threat, every act of violence is a note in his silent symphony of crime. He began as a streetwise hustler in Mumbai, learning the rules of survival in a city that never sleeps. But ambition burned in him brighter than the city lights. From the chaos of Mumbai's underbelly, he built a network that now stretches from India to Europe, Africa, and beyond. In 1993, the world saw the true extent of his ruthlessness. He's accused of masterminding the Bombay bombings, over 250 lives lost in a single shattering day. The city was left scarred, and his legend was sealed in blood. Today, Dawood lives in opulence, shielded by layers of security and allegedly the protection of Pakistan's ISI. His mansions are fortresses, his movements a mystery. He is a fugitive, yet he moves with the confidence of a king. D Company's influence seeps into every corner of Indian society: Bollywood, politics, business. Stars, tycoons, and politicians have all felt the chill of his shadow. Deals are made, careers are broken, all with a single whispered word. He's more than a mob boss. He's a shadow producer, a kingmaker, a global terrorist. His name appears on Interpol's most wanted list, but his face is rarely seen. He is everywhere and nowhere. His billions are hidden in shell companies, offshore accounts, and luxury real estate scattered across the world. Each asset is a fortress. Each transaction, a ghost. Dawood Ibrahim is the modern face of organized crime, unseen but everywhere. He is the ghost in the system, the shadow in the crowd, the name that haunts every investigation. He proves the most powerful criminals are the ones you never see. His absence is his greatest weapon. He rules by rumor, by fear, by the certainty that he is always one step ahead. But in the world of shadows, there's always another player, another kingpin who manipulates the world from behind the curtain. Meet the Brainy Don, the next chapter in this saga of power, fear, and the unseen. In the shadowy world of organized crime, one name sends chills through the corridors of power: Semyon Mogilevich. Known as the Brainy Don, he isn't feared for brutality, but for a mind as sharp as a razor. While most mobsters rule with fists and guns, Mogilevich commands with numbers, strategy, and a chilling intellect that outsmarts even the most sophisticated law enforcement agencies. Born in Ukraine, Mogilevich was a prodigy, an economist who saw the world not as nations and borders but as a vast chessboard of opportunity. He mastered the art of global financial fraud, money laundering, and stock manipulation, turning white-collar crime into a science. His schemes were legendary. The infamous YBM Magnex stock fraud alone siphoned hundreds of millions from unsuspecting investors, leaving financial markets reeling and authorities scrambling to catch up. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Mogilevich's empire stretched across continents. He orchestrated arms trafficking, contract killings, and even deals involving nuclear materials. His network was a spiderweb, ensnaring politicians, businessmen, and criminals from New York to Moscow. What made him truly untouchable was his mastery of the law. Mogilevich exploited legal loopholes with a cunning that left lawmakers helpless. Operating from Moscow, he enjoyed state protection, living in luxury while the world's police watched from afar. Despite being plastered on the FBI's most wanted list, Mogilevich strolled Moscow's streets with impunity. He became a living legend, untouchable, uncatchable, and seemingly invisible to justice. With the resources of a nation-state at his fingertips, Mogilevich blurred the line between criminal and kingpin. His meetings resembled boardroom summits more than back-alley deals, and his wealth rivaled that of small countries. But Mogilevich wasn't just a relic of the old world. He was a pioneer of the new, using cyber warfare, digital manipulation, and high-tech financial fraud to stay ahead. His operations foreshadowed the future of organized crime, where the battlefield is digital and the stakes are global. In a world obsessed with brute force, Mogilevich proved the most dangerous weapon is a mind that can hack the system. He didn't just break the rules, he rewrote them, leaving a trail of chaos in his wake. The old-school gangsters used guns and muscle. Mogilevich wielded the global economy like a weapon, pulling strings from the shadows and leaving no fingerprints. But before the digital age, there was the original gangster. Enter Al Capone, a man who ruled with fear but whose legacy would be forever changed by the rise of the Brainy Don. Al Capone, the original gangster, the man whose very name became synonymous with the word mobster. He didn't just break the law, he rewrote the rules of the underworld, turning crime into a business empire during the chaos of Prohibition. In the roaring 1920s, Capone saw opportunity where others saw danger. He built his Chicago empire by giving people what they craved most: booze, forbidden and flowing in secret speakeasies across the city. His network stretched from the darkest alleys to the grandest ballrooms. Capone was a master of public relations, charming the press and the public alike. He posed as a modern-day Robin Hood, handing out turkeys at Thanksgiving, smiling for the cameras, and making headlines as much for his generosity as his ruthlessness. He opened soup kitchens for the poor, feeding thousands during the Great Depression. But behind the charitable facade, his enforcers unleashed terror, most infamously in the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, a brutal reminder that Capone's kindness had sharp teeth. At his peak, Capone's operation raked in over $100 million a year, an astronomical sum, worth more than $1 billion today. He lived like royalty, surrounded by luxury, his parties the stuff of legend. Capone didn't just control bootlegging and gambling, he had city officials in his pocket. Politicians, police, even judges, many owed their loyalty to the man known as Chicago's shadow mayor. The city danced to his tune, but with power came arrogance. Capone flaunted his wealth, taunted the authorities, and believed himself untouchable. That pride would be his undoing. The police couldn't pin the murders on him, the FBI couldn't break his code. But the government found another way in, through his wallet. The feds, led by Elliot Ness and a team of relentless agents, went after Capone for tax evasion. In the end, it wasn't bullets or betrayals that brought Capone down, it was an accountant with a ledger. The king of crime, toppled by the very system he thought he could outsmart. Capone was sent to Alcatraz, the infamous island prison, his empire crumbling behind him. His story became a warning: no matter how powerful you are, you can't outrun the law forever. But while Capone's reign ended behind bars, halfway across the world, in the wild jungles of Asia, a new kingpin was rising from the shadows. This was a world ruled not by bootleg whiskey, but by opium. Here, armies marched for a different kind of king. His name was Kun Sa, and his legend was just beginning. Deep in the heart of Southeast Asia's Golden Triangle, where the borders of Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand blur into a wild, lawless expanse, a legend was born. This was a land of secrets, of misty mountains and hidden rivers, where fortunes were made in the shadows. Here, Kun Sa rose from obscurity to rule a narco-state with an iron fist and a private army thousands strong. His word was law, his reach absolute. To his people, he was more than a warlord. He was a self-proclaimed freedom fighter for the Shan, promising hope and protection in a world that had forgotten them. But Kun Sa's revolution was funded by heroin, pure, potent, and destined for the streets of distant cities. His empire thrived on the world's insatiable appetite for the forbidden. His jungle fortress was a state within a state, impenetrable, self-sufficient, and fiercely defended. It was a world apart, where Kun Sa reigned supreme. Within his domain, soldiers patrolled endless poppy fields, children attended schools he built, and the sick found care in makeshift hospitals. He was both protector and profiteer. At his peak, Kun Sa supplied a staggering 70% of America's heroin. His product traveled across continents, fueling addiction and fortune alike. He built secret refineries deep in the jungle, orchestrating a smuggling network that spanned the globe. No border could hold him back. The US government, desperate to stop the flood, put a $2 million bounty on his head. But Kun Sa was always one step ahead. In his mountain kingdom, surrounded by loyal soldiers and treacherous terrain, he was untouchable. a ghost in the jungle. But even legends grow weary. In 1996, after decades of war and pursuit, Kun Sa struck a secret deal with the government. One last move in a lifetime of gambits. He disbanded his army, surrendered his empire, and in return, was granted a peaceful retirement. The king had bargained for his freedom. Kun Sa faded into the city, living out his days as a wealthy businessman, untouched, unpunished, and unrepentant. His story is proof that sometimes the king simply walks away, leaving behind a legend and a power vacuum. But as Kun Sa's shadow faded, a new legend was being born in Mexico, a land where the game was about to change forever. The escape artist would soon become a myth. Enter El Chapo, master of tunnels, king of escapes. The game was about to go underground, where legends are made and kings are never safe for long. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, born in the rugged hills of Sinaloa, rose from humble beginnings to become the most notorious drug lord of his era. Even as a child, he was known for his cunning and relentless drive, traits that would one day make him both feared and legendary. El Chapo didn't just smuggle drugs, he redefined the very concept of trafficking. He masterminded air-conditioned tunnels stretching beneath the US-Mexico border, some equipped with rails and lighting, allowing tons of narcotics to flow undetected. When tunnels weren't enough, he used catapults, drones, and even submarines, hiding drugs in everything from jalapeno cans to oil tankers. Under his command, the Sinaloa cartel became a global empire operating in over 50 countries. His reach extended from the jungles of Colombia to the streets of Chicago, with billions in cash, fleets of luxury cars, and armies of loyal sicarios at his command. But it was his escapes that truly cemented his legend. In 2001, facing extradition, El Chapo vanished from a maximum security prison, smuggled out in a laundry cart, right under the noses of his captors. The world was stunned. The myth of the escape artist was born. 14 years later, he did the impossible again. In 2015, a mile-long tunnel, complete with ventilation and a motorcycle on rails, was dug directly beneath his prison cell. He vanished into the darkness, leaving authorities humiliated and the world in disbelief. Each escape was a blow to the government, and a triumph for the people who saw him as a modern-day Robin Hood. Songs were written, murals painted, and his legend grew with every daring feat. But hubris would be his undoing. Craving recognition, El Chapo agreed to a secret interview with actor Sean Penn. The meeting, meant to immortalize his story, instead gave authorities the clues they needed to close in. Captured after a dramatic raid, El Chapo was extradited to the United States. Today, he spends his days in a supermax prison, isolated from the world he once ruled. Yet the Sinaloa cartel endures, its operations as vast and shadowy as ever, a testament to the criminal empire El Chapo built from nothing. His story is one of ingenuity, violence, and boundless ambition, a saga of a man who bent the world to his will but could never outrun his own legend. Yet, while El Chapo dominated headlines, another kingpin operated in the shadows, patient, invisible, always one step ahead. For decades, the DEA hunted this ghost, chasing whispers and shadows across continents. Rafael Caro Quintero's legend was just as enduring, his story woven into the very fabric of the drug war. His tale is a lesson in patience, persistence, and the high-stakes chess game of the underworld, where the true kingpins are never quite who you expect. In the shadows of 1980s Mexico, a young Rafael Caro Quintero rose from humble beginnings to become the founder of the Guadalajara cartel. His name would soon echo in the halls of power and fear alike. Caro Quintero was not just a drug lord, he was a visionary, orchestrating a vast network that moved tons of marijuana and cocaine north of the border. But his ambition came at a terrible cost. In 1985, the brutal murder of DEA agent Kiki Camarena shocked the world and brought the full weight of U.S. law enforcement crashing down on the cartel. Caro Quintero was captured, tried, and sentenced to 40 years in a Mexican prison. For years, it seemed his story had ended behind bars. Then, in 2013, the impossible happened. A judge quietly ordered his release, citing a legal technicality. Overnight, Caro Quintero vanished from the public eye, slipping into the underworld like a ghost. The world was stunned. The DEA placed a staggering $20 million bounty on his head, but he was nowhere to be found. For nearly a decade, rumors swirled. Some said he was rebuilding his empire from the shadows, orchestrating violence and alliances in a new, more ruthless era. Others claimed he was a myth, a phantom haunting the nightmares of rivals and lawmen alike. His legend only grew. His ability to disappear was legendary. He evaded capture time and again, always one step ahead. But in 2022, fate finally caught up. A search dog, trained for the hunt, found him hiding in the mountains. The Invisible Kingpin was visible once more. Caro Quintero's story is a chilling reminder of the long memory of both criminals and law enforcement. Decades after his first crimes, the hunt never truly ended. His capture was a victory, but also a warning. The past is never really gone. For years, he played the long game, outsmarting rivals, bribing officials, and living in the shadows of luxury. He succeeded where others failed, shaping the underworld with patience and cunning. Caro Quintero represents the old guard, the architects of a criminal empire whose actions set the stage for decades of bloodshed and betrayal. Their legacy is written in both fear and fortune. But as the old empires crumbled, new kings emerged from the chaos. The world of the cartels was changing, and a new era was about to begin. The Lord of the Skies would soon take drug trafficking to new heights, rewriting the rules of the game. Enter Amado Carrillo Fuentes. In the shadowy world of drug trafficking, one man soared above the rest, Amado Carrillo Fuentes, known as the Lord of the Skies. He didn't just run a cartel, he commanded a private air force, a fleet of Boeing 727s that turned the skies into his personal highway. Carrillo Fuentes revolutionized the Juarez cartel, forging secret alliances with Colombian kingpins. His planes carried tons of cocaine across continents, landing under the cover of darkness in Mexico, where corrupt officials ensured safe passage. His fleet dwarfed anything his rivals could muster. Every shipment that touched down meant millions in profit, and a cut for Carrillo Fuentes, who became the silent partner in nearly every major deal. Unlike the flashy kingpins before him, Carrillo Fuentes was a master of discretion. He built a vast web of corruption, buying loyalty from politicians, police, and airport officials, ensuring his empire ran smoothly, quietly, and efficiently. At his peak, he was worth over $25 billion. His wealth bought him palatial mansions, fleets of luxury cars, and a lifestyle that few could even imagine. Yet he remained a ghost, rarely seen, always in control. But power breeds paranoia. In 1997, desperate to escape law enforcement, Carrillo Fuentes checked into a Mexico City hospital under a false name, seeking plastic surgery to change his appearance forever. The operation went horribly wrong. He died on the table, his empire left leaderless. The surgeons who tried to alter his face were later found dead, their bodies encased in concrete, a chilling message to anyone who crossed the cartel. In the end, the Lord of the Skies died trying to erase his own identity, his final act as mysterious as his life. His death sent shockwaves through the underworld. The skies he once ruled became a battleground for new contenders, but none could match his reach or his cunning. Yet, as the world reeled from his mysterious end, a new king was waiting in the wings, one who would shock the world and redefine the very limits of power. Pablo Escobar was about to step into the spotlight, and the world would never be the same. Pablo Escobar, once just a boy from the streets of Medellin, would rise to become the most feared and powerful drug lord the world had ever seen. His ambition was limitless, his empire unimaginable. At his peak, the Medellin cartel supplied a staggering 80% of America's cocaine, flooding the streets and raking in $60 million every single day. Money poured in faster than he could spend it, so much that rats reportedly ate millions in hidden cash. With his fortune, Escobar built a private paradise, Hacienda Napoles, complete with a zoo of exotic animals, a fleet of vintage cars, and even his own submarines to smuggle drugs beneath the waves. But his reign was soaked in blood. Escobar unleashed a wave of terror, car bombings, assassinations, and the bombing of Avianca Flight 203, leaving a nation gripped by fear. The world watched as Colombian authorities, backed by the U.S., hunted him relentlessly. In 1993, cornered on a Medellin rooftop, Escobar met his violent end in a hail of bullets. Today, his story stands as the ultimate cautionary tale, a king who shocked the world but whose empire was built on tragedy and terror. Escobar's legacy is a chilling reminder, even the mightiest can fall. In the shadows of history, these crime lords didn't just chase wealth, They rewrote the very definition of power. Their names became legends whispered in fear, their empires built on ambition, ruthlessness, and a vision that defied the law. From Griselda's innovation in the drug trade to El Chapo's labyrinthine tunnels, they constructed parallel worlds, societies within societies, governed by their own brutal rules. Every wall, every tunnel, every fortress was a testament to their ingenuity and paranoia. Among them, Escobar's shadow looms the largest, a titan whose reach extended from the jungles of Colombia to the corridors of global power. His story is a warning, echoing through time, about the corrosive nature of absolute power and unchecked ambition. He had everything: wealth beyond imagination, armies at his command, the adoration and terror of millions. But in the end, he lost it all. His empire crumbled, leaving only ruins and memories of what once was. These stories are more than just true crime. They're a window into the darkest corners of human ambition. They reveal how the hunger for power can twist morality, turning cities into battlegrounds and trust into a rare commodity. When the restraints of society shatter, a person's will becomes law. In these lawless empires, loyalty is bought, betrayal is inevitable, and justice is whatever the boss decides. It's a terrifying glimpse into a world just beneath our own, a world where the rules are written in blood and every fortune comes at a price. Because when money, fear, and charisma collide, they don't just break the rules, they burn the world down. The echo of their empires lingers, a haunting reminder that the line between order and chaos is thinner than we dare to imagine.